Today we're going to talk about fear. Fear, it's a very interesting emotion. Fear, unfortunately, is what stops all of us from achieving our goals. According to McKinsey & Company, fear is the biggest hurdle for innovation. But unfortunately, 90% of companies do very little to encourage their employees to be innovative and to overcome that fear. Fear is probably the oldest emotion we have in our brain. It has its origin in the reptilian part of our brain, the most primitive one. But fear, interestingly enough, it's the emotion that has allowed all of us to be here today, because fear protects us. It's us about danger. Fear is an emotion that if you can control. But when we talk about fear, we also have to talk about stress. And both fear and stress have negative emotions. Totally the contrary. But you have to learn how to manage it. Fear will protect you. Fear will make you aware of any possible dangers and risks. And stress is what makes us grow as human beings. With no stress, we become bored. With too much stress, we have a lot of problems. Most scientists and doctors agree that the biggest problem of our society today is badly managed stress. Now, here's a question for you. If it's so important, why schools, universities, and corporations don't teach students and their employees on how to manage stress? So what I will bring to you today is the way that I have managed stress throughout my life. I have confronted fear. So people tend to fear different things, and you can summarize it in this mnemonic, Wi-Fi. We all know Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is all the fear of being weak, the fear of being insignificant. F for the fear of failing. Another F for the feeling of being foolish. And the I for fear of being irrelevant. Skydiving. Skydiving is a really interesting sport. It triggers great emotions. But you can summarize all that Wi-Fi mnemonic into a skydiving. You feel so insignificant. You feel so irrelevant when you're in the air. You feel foolish. I'm going to show you a little video of how this little girl, during her first skydive jump, tandem jump, goes from fear at its extreme emotion, which is horror, and suddenly it turns into joy and finishes with tremendous euphoria. Watch this.
Go, 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 go! Oh my God! That was so much fun.
That was so much fun. She started panicking as soon as the instructor tapped her on the shoulder, gave the brain an order that took the mind from fear to something that she had to accomplish, something very easy. Extend your arms. Immediately you saw a little grin, and that turned into joy, and she ends up asking, first, did I do it okay? Fear of being foolish, fear of being irrelevant. And she finishes saying, that was so much fun. We're using skydiving to help a lot of people. Last month, I was invited to jump with military in France, in Saint-Michel, because a lot of soldiers that suffer of post-traumatic syndrome, we have found out that taking them skydiving is helping them a lot. Now, why my interest in fear? I wanted to be a professional tennis player. I played the qualifying of Wimbledon, the French Open, the US Open, but I never made it to where I really wanted to make it because I'm going to show off a little bit. I had a six pack. I was strong. I was fast. I had great strokes, great backhand, good forehand, but something up here did not work. I could not control my emotions. My nerves took the best of me. So I decided one day that the feeling before a competition and during the competition, especially 4-4 in the second set, or when I had to play a tiebreaker, was so uncomfortable, disgusting, that it was not worth for me pursuing a tennis career. So I retired and I decided to become a tennis coach, but with a very clear purpose. I was going to try to teach my players all those things that I couldn't control myself. In those days, 35 years ago, there was no such thing as mental toughness training. Just a few guys around there. But you got to keep in mind that tennis is probably one of the toughest sports there is. You measure the toughness mentally of a sport in relation to the amount of time that you do not play the sport. Let me explain this to you. If you play golf, you hit the ball, and 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes go by until you hit the next ball. In tennis, we finish the shot and we have 25 seconds in between points and 1.5 minutes when we change sides. During that time is where our mind goes to very weird places, and you gotta keep it under control. Tennis is also a sport that is played every week in a different city, in a different country. You stay in a different hotel, eating in restaurants, and most of the time you are alone. It's an individual sport. That's why Federer, Djokovic, Alcaraz, they travel with huge entourages, 11, 12 people. Most of those people, what they do is they give the player the emotional support they need. So I work with these 4 guys. The one in the left, Tomás Carbonell, he became Wimbledon junior champion. The chap next to him won the NCAA, playing for Louisiana State University. It's been one of the best players of the American University Tennis League. And the chap on the right, Juan Carlos Bagena, was named Rookie of the Year by the ATP. In 4 months working with these guys, concentrating on making them believe they were better than what really are and controlling their emotions, I put them all in the top 100 of the ATP. So that worked for me. I wish somebody would have done the same with me, but the proof is in the pudding. Mental toughness training in tennis is what makes the difference today. If you watch Alcaraz and Sinner, oh my God, we are up for a great rivalry. Those are the best 2 players ahead of all of them, all the others. Alcaraz won the French Open after having 4 match balls against him. Wimbledon, Sinner won. US Open, Alcaraz won. The only difference there was a slight frame of mind. One maybe was more motivated, one was more focused, etc. And that was my first event. Why do I mention this? Do you guys recognize him? Andre Agassi, when he had hair. That was when Murcia, he had just won the tournament of Forest Hills. What I did, apart from retiring from tennis and coach my players from the mental point of view, every time I've had the chance to work with a celebrity, a successful celebrity, I have them and spent time talking about how do they manage fear. With all the celebrities that I have had the honor of working. Andre was the first one. And here's a recommendation for you. Even if you don't like tennis, read his book called Open. It's a lesson in life. Very, very inspiring. So when I retired from tennis, about 25 years ago, I created CRAND. It's my events management agency. People say, what a weird name. CHR for Christian, AND for Andrea, my daughter and my son. So I have had the honor of working with a lot of celebrities: Enrique Iglesias, Sting, Pink Floyd, Jamiroquai, Eric Cantona, Agassi, Stefan Edberg. And with all of them, or most of them, I have spent time talking about how do they confront fear and manage stress. And that led me to create, about 8 or 9 years ago, my own training system called SMILE. Stands for sports, motivation, inspiration, leadership, and energy. But also because I'm a firm believer that with a smile in your face, it's very difficult to have fear. It's very difficult to be angry. A smile in your face triggers endorphins, which are pleasure hormones, the best way to confront stress and fear. And it's based on 3 different pillars. Number 1, my conversations with some of the celebrities that I have worked with, especially Sting and Vice President Al Gore. I spent long hours talking to the Vice President. My first question was, what did you do? How did you feel when you lost the elections? With the Sting, I learned a lot about yoga, rituals, and breathing techniques. And so on with Francis Ford Coppola, with President Obama, the former Secretary General Kofi Annan. The second pillar are personal experiences that I have encountered. Unfortunately, my life has not been always a road full of roses. In 2019, I went to South Africa to organize one of my events. And I had to do a conference to introduce a big summit about managing water resources and announcing that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be the keynote speaker. The following day, I decided to go scuba diving. In those days, I used to travel with my scuba diving equipment. Today, I travel with my parachute. Wherever I go, I try to jump out of a plane. In those days, I went scuba diving. And in South Africa, you can dive with white sharks, but also you can dive with sea lions. They're so friendly and it's so much fun to dive with. So I went diving, I did 2 immersions, and when I came out, my phone was full of missed calls. The local guys, the organizers of the event, realized that 12 October is Spain National Day. And they wanted me to treat me to a typical braai, which is a barbecue, South African style. I go to the barbecue. It's in the outskirts of Cape Town, about 45, 50 minutes away from downtown. We had a nice meal, and the owner of the house, knowing my passion and my knowledge for wine, wanted me to visit his cellar. So we went, we tasted a couple of wine. By this time, it's around 10 o'clock at night. Jet lag, 2 immersions, wine. I wanted to go to bed. I said, guys, I'm trying to get an Uber. I had my phone with me. And I'm trying to get an Uber, but because I'm carrying a Spanish phone, it didn't work very well. So my friend Rene says, Pancho, don't worry. I will get you an Uber under my name. Okay. He said, the car will be here in 10 minutes, but because it's late at night, the security protocol of this urbanization says that you have to go to the main gate and wait for the car outside. Cars are not allowed inside the urbanization after 10 o'clock. I said, listen, don't worry. It's a nice night, it's warm, I'll wait at the gate. They had organized a party for me, I had to apologize. So I walk to the gate, the guard comes out and says, are you waiting for an Uber? Yes. What's your name? My name is Pancho Campo. Okay, I'll let you know when it arrives. 10 minutes go by, the guy comes out and said, Mr. Campo, your car, it's in the roundabout. If you don't want to wait, you can walk, it's about 200 yards. Or we can ask the car to go around the roundabout and come here, but it will take a little bit longer. Say, listen, don't worry, I will walk to the car. As I reached the car, few things caught my attention. Number 1, the car was filthy and really stinky when I opened the door. I said, oh my God. Second, there's 2 guys in the car. I didn't think much because I thought, well, maybe at night in South Africa, they have another security protocol. They don't want the driver to go alone. And third, the guy says, Mr. Pancho Campo? I said, yes. Later on, I realized that how did he know my name if the application was in the name of my friend, René Frank? police investigation found out that the security guy was in cahoots with the two drivers. So I get in the car. I know I have at least 45 minutes to get to my hotel. I keep on playing with the phone, trying to get some Wi-Fi, some internet, so I can call my wife. It's working, it's not working. Oh my God, this is not downtown Cape Town. Downtown Cape Town is full of buildings, as you can see there. I said, guys, are we lost? He said, yes, we're lost. So I take my phone, and again, I try to look for Wi-Fi, go into Google Maps. At that time, one of the guys turns around, grabs my phone, and bends down. And he's trying to pair his phone with mine. I don't know if he was trying to steal my codes, my credit cards, but he was doing something there. I say, hey, listen. And he says, I'm trying to get Google Maps. At that time, the face of my wife appears on the phone. She's calling me. And he hangs up. I get really angry. Hey, give me back my phone, and don't you hang up the phone of my wife. He gets really angry, opens the glove compartment, pulls out a gun, turns around and pointed to my head. Shut up and give me all the money that you have. Usually, I never carry money. That day, luckily, I was carrying $80. Nothing. So the guy says, $80? Are you kidding me? We want $3,000 or I'll shoot you. He turns around. My wife was calling. He hangs up again. I said, please, can you not hang up on my wife? Take me to an ATM. I'll give you money, but I'm not carrying any credit cards. Usually, this is what I carry. This metal box has my ID, my driver license, and 3 credit cards. That day, for some reason, I put it in my back pocket. So when the guy asked me for more money, I said, listen, I got nothing. He is really angry. He starts with the racist comments. You white Europeans come to Africa to take advantage of us. I'm going to shoot you. Find a way to get $3,000. I said, take me back to the hotel and I'll give you the $3,000. He said, there's no way we're going to the hotel. The driver, I think he was getting nervous. He saw that this guy was very irate. And believe it or not, although it's the Rainbow Nation, there's still a lot of racism there. So the guy thought, he's going to shoot the white boy and we're going to get in trouble. He pulls over, comes around the car, pulls me out of the car. I remember I banged my head against the frame of the car, and they push me. I roll and I hit my back against one of the lampposts, and they go away. And I'm like, thank you, God. So I'm cleaning myself. My back is hurting. I start walking. I realize I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's pitch black. There's overcasted, so I can't see Table Mountain, which is that mountain that you see in the back. I could have used that as a reference to walk towards Cape Town. So I decided to start jogging, pacing myself. I think I was, because they stole my watch as well, I didn't have a sense of time. But I think I was running for about 50 minutes, 45 minutes, and suddenly I see a red light in the far right. That looks like a gas station. So I keep on running. When I go closer, indeed, I see the red light. It is a gas station. And I'm thinking, what about if it's closed? It's very late at night. Doesn't matter. I will hide until the light comes up, the sun comes out, or somebody opens up. So as I'm reaching the gas station, I see some little houses and some buildings on the left side. So maybe I should go to this side and somebody can help me. I will knock at the door. That place looks dark, dodgy. I say, no, let me go to the gas station. I will hide. At this time, thank you, God, a police car goes by. Stop. Typical Afrikaans, red hair, full of freckles, white. What happened to you? So I tell him, he said, listen, get in the car. I'm going to take you to the police station. As we're driving, he said, you're very lucky you didn't come to this side because this is the most dangerous neighborhood in the whole of Africa. We have a police station where I'm going to take you. You will see we have machine guns, metal bars, because 1 or 2 people get killed in this neighborhood every day. So as we get to the police station, the policeman tells me, Mr. Campo, we are not going to take your statement today. I said, why is that? He said, because you are under severe state of shock. I said, what do you mean shock? He said, look at your legs and look at your arms. I was shaking. And he said, it's 24 degrees Celsius outside. And if you've been running for 45 minutes, how come you're totally dry? Not a drop of sweat in my face, armpits, the shirt was completely dry. Then I broke down. I realized what I was going through. Calm down, don't you worry, sit, we'll bring you some water, and when you come down, we'll take you back to your hotel. About half an hour later, they take me out to the hotel. It took us a long time. And as we're reaching the hotel, the sun is coming out. So this thing started at 10 o'clock at night. It's almost 7 o'clock in the morning. And when we reach the hotel, it's crowded. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of noise. I didn't think much. So maybe some tourists are arriving. I come out of the car. No. Everybody there was waiting for me. Because what happened was, when the guy hung up the phone, the third time, instead of pressing the red button, he pressed the green button. So my wife is listening from Spain how I'm begging for my life. In the right moment where I said, please, I beg you, I have 2 kids, I have a wife, I have a business, I'll give you anything you want. She's listening from Spain. So she calls the embassy, she calls the hotel, she calls the police. You gotta call your wife as soon as possible. I said, I don't want to call my wife. No, she knows everything. Don't you worry. I said, but they took my phone. Don't worry. She just called again. So I got on the phone. I spoke to her. She was much more calm. And she said, tomorrow on the first plane, you're coming back home. I said, but first I got to, the police have to take the testimony. So they come the next day. And I remember it was a lady police. They said, Mr. Campo, are you a believer? I said, actually, I'm not a very religious person, but I do believe that my dad is up there always looking after me. He said, well, your dad looks after you very well, because in this country, 8 out of 10 people that go through what you went cannot tell the next day the story. You think that's fear? That was scary. But because I've gone through my mental toughness training, which I started in 2015, this is 2019, I applied to myself the jogging, the pacing myself, the breathing. The one who had the toughest time was my wife. So I've had a lot of bad experiences in my life. They're in my book, which you can buy at the reception. There's another one that I'm not going to tell you. You have to read it. I was wanted by Interpol during 12 years for something I didn't do, with a red notice. A red notice is the same notice that Osama bin Laden had. That, usually I don't tell that story because I get very emotional. You can read it. It came out in all the press. And my daughter was in Miami celebrating Spain's National Day. And one of the friends says, hey, Andrea, I read in Facebook that a businessman from your hometown has been kidnapped in South Africa. I said, what's his name? Because my dad is in South Africa. His name is Pancho Campo. She freaked out. How did it went into social media like hours after I was kidnapped? We'll never know. The third pillar of my system, of my book, is experiences that I have confronted because I wanted to. For example, I love sharks. I respect them a lot. They have bad press because of the movie Jaws. But, I've learned that sharks don't like human flesh. They like fish. And they don't like our blood. It's just a myth. I love skydiving. I love extreme sports. And lately, I get myself into these situations because I want to study in my own flesh, my system, and what does it feel to experience fear at its extreme? Because one of the things that I've learned in tennis is you cannot teach somebody to face fear. You cannot teach somebody to manage stress if you have not been there. When Rafa Nadal needed to hire a different coach, his uncle was retiring, he hired Carlos Moya because Carlos Moya had been number 1 in the world and had won a Grand Slam. So in order to teach people about confronting these type of situations, I always recommend people go with someone that has experienced this kind of emotions. So how can we confront fear? I'm going to share a few tips that have helped me. In the book, you have all the strategies and techniques that we believe are useful. They're all being designed by a group of people that work with me: a doctor, a PhD in psychology, a nutritionist, a sports person, and a couple of coaches. So the number one, last year, I needed to finish my book, and there was one chapter missing. We decided that chapter was going to be dedicated to managing fear, but I needed to do something to prove that the system works. So what I decided was to do a halo jump. A halo jump is a jump invented by the Navy SEALs. It's only performed by the military in Spain, for example, and it's high altitude, low opening. You jump very high to avoid the radars, to being detected by the radars of the enemy, and you open your parachute when you're low. In that way, the radar of the enemy doesn't detect you, and you can infiltrate enemy lines. It's considered as the most dangerous and risky of all the skydiving jumps. Last year, apart from doing the jump, we decided that in order to be compliant with our foundation, we were going to use this jump to create awareness about how important it is to combat bullying. I never imagined that it was going to have such media repercussion. These are probably the most read newspapers in Spain. We were in all the TV news at prime time, not only because of bullying, but also I didn't know I was the oldest person to do a halo jump in Spain, and I was the first one. Because in Spain, halo jumps are only allowed to be performed by the military. I went to Denmark to do this. So that day, we decided that we're going to start a huge campaign throughout the entire year that's called Zero Bullying. So the first thing you have to do with fear, you have to accept that fear will always be present in your life, and no matter what you do, business, school, academics, sports, even in your sentimental life, you will have to face fear. And also you will have to face stress. As I said at the beginning, there's nothing wrong with the stress. Makes you grow, keeps you motivated, as long as you don't lose control. And fear will protect us. So we have to accept it. And that was the cell where Nelson Mandela spent 28 years of his life. When I went to South Africa, I went to visit his cell because I admire this man tremendously. I always wanted to meet him. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance. That was the cell where he spent 28 years, and he went to try to rest after doing hard works and being abused physically and emotionally by his guards. So he has this quote, which is, "I've learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave is not the one that does not feel fear, but the one who conquers fear." That is the principle of anybody. Tomorrow you have to do a presentation in front of your board, you have an exam, you have any important task, and you are facing fear. The first thing you have to accept that you will have fear. Second, you have to understand, what are you afraid of? Most of the time we are afraid of the unknown. Well, make the unknown known. What did I do? I had to understand what a halo jump was. High altitude, low opening. I was going to jump from 25,000 feet. What happens at 25,000 feet? There's no oxygen enough to keep me alive. I could pass out. I could get dizzy. I could get headaches. And when you're performing such an extreme sport, you need to be 100% focused. And you need to perform at 100%. I couldn't afford having a headache or being dizzy because maybe I don't read my altimeter correctly. I opened the parachute at the wrong altitude. I could have made mistakes. Number two, because the air is so thin, when I came out of the airplane, I could start spinning out of control. So that was the first danger. Second, I was going to fall minimum at 200 miles per hour. depending on my position. This position that I'm flying is called belly. It's with your belly facing the earth. If I go like this, that's called tracking, or if I go standing, my speed could have reached 500 kilometers, 300 and more miles per hour. Third, the temperature. The temperature upon exit was going to be in the range of minus 40 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. Is the same. Minus 40 is the same in both Fahrenheit and Celsius. But that didn't worry me too much because I've been diving under the ice in Greenland. I've been to the Arctic. My Inuit guide told me once, Pancho, there's no such thing as cold. It's only bad clothes. So what we did is I had the same clothes that I wore when I went scuba diving in Greenland. I had it underneath my flight suit. Now here's the problem. You see that next to my face, my cheeks, they're exposed to the ambient. If for any reason my parachute opens upon exiting, I will be flying with my parachute during 2 or 3 minutes at minus 40. Those part of my face could be frozen. Luckily, it didn't happen. I opened at 4,500 feet, which is the altitude that I wanted to. But there was one more added disadvantage, my age. At the age of 63, I'm 64 now. Last year I was 63. Your speed of reaction is much lower. Your risk of injury is much higher, and you recover very slowly. So I had to prepare for this. Number 2 tip, work on your balance. This for me, this is something that I invented with my team. I believe that in life, when you achieve greatest things is when you are in balance. Most philosophers associate balance with happiness. When everything is in perfect balance in your life is when you are truly happy. For me, balance is a table with 4 legs. The physical leg, the mental leg, the emotional leg, and the spiritual leg. The physical is everything about your physique, your training, what you eat, how you sleep, how you rest, your blood analysis, everything that is your body. The mental, it's what we're doing now. You guys are trying to learn from me. I'm trying to learn from you. You go to college, you go to university, you read, you listen to music. The brain has to be trained as much as your body. The emotional is the most complicated one because it involves not only your emotions, but also the relationship you have with your spouse, with your children, with your parents. I can be in perfect balance, but if my daughter tomorrow has a problem at her job or breaks with her boyfriend, it's not my direct problem, but it will affect me. And the spiritual is what differentiates us from animals and machines. It's your motivation, it's your inspiration, it's what allows human beings to accomplish great things. You know, when we conquered the Everest or the South Pole, when Kipchoge ran the marathon below 2 hours, or when Rafa Nadal won 14 Roland Garros. Is that energy, that force that nobody knows where it comes from, but it allows you to do the incredible. These 4 legs are going to be in perfect balance in very rare and few moments of your life. When you do have that perfect balance is when you usually accomplish great things. The important thing in life is to be aware of the most minimal imbalance in any of those legs. If tomorrow Augusto goes for a medical checkup and has high cholesterol, red light, red light, red light, his physical leg is shaking. If I have to sit an exam and I haven't studied properly, red light, red light, red light. If the emotional part is the one that involves you, but also your surroundings, the people that you love. Or if tomorrow Augusto or Daniela were not inspired or motivated enough for this event, red light, red light, red light. Now, like there were 3 musketeers, but they were 4, There are 4 legs, but there are actually 5. What about money? We're in America. What about money? Where does money come into play in this equation? It is the 5th leg, but the reason why I don't include it as one of the crucial legs is because I have met a lot of people around the world who are in balance and extremely happy, and they have little money. Not having money is not an excuse for you not to pursue balance and happiness. But if you do make money, and I encourage everybody to make as much money as possible, use it wisely. With more money, you can go to a better fitness center, you can have better doctors, you can have better physiotherapy, you can go to better universities, you can try to solve problems in your family, and you can get inspired. Make sense? Yeah? All right. And also, the more imbalanced you are, the more energy efficient you will be. The more imbalanced, the less energy you are going to waste. Remember that energy is something that we wake up in the morning, we have breakfast, we're full of energy. But as the day goes by, that energy goes down. We have to recharge it. I want to leave you with one thought that I believe in profoundly. Life is not about time, it's about energy. You can have the perfect agenda, and my secretary puts a meeting, very important meeting, at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 6 o'clock in the afternoon my energy is low, that meeting will not be 100%. So it's more important to control your energy than your time. So what I did in regards to balance, I hired my son as my personal trainer. We started going to the gym more often than I usually do. But also I had to work on the technical part. So I had to work on my landings, and I had to work on how I exit the plane, because the air up there was going to be very thin. So this The mental preparation consisted in me learning everything about hypoxia, how to detect it, how to solve it, and especially from this gentleman, how to use the oxygen equipment that we were expected to fly with. The emotional preparation, I took my son with me. I never told him that I needed his emotional support. And I decided to take him and not my daughter, because the little girl doing skydiving, that was my daughter. She is very Latina. She is very emotional. My wife is pretty much the same. So if I take them to do a halo jump, and the day of the halo, they are all nervous, that it's going to be contagious. My son does MMA. He's cold as an iceberg. We hardly speak, but we understand each other perfectly. For me, it was the perfect companion. And for the spiritual training, I watched Rocky 3 nights before my jump. I used to have conversations with my son and my best friend, but not about the jump, or we spoke about the jump, but in a positive manner, or I listened to music or read a book. That was my inspiration. Another point that I strongly recommend you to work on when you are under stress, or when you want to have a more balanced life, work on your endorphins. Endorphins are pleasure hormones. My dad was a pioneer because he was one of the inventors of epidural, that needle that ladies have in the back. But working with him, I learned that you can release endorphins. Apart from having pain, there are other ways to stimulate the release of endorphins. Number 1 is exercise. If you exercise, you release endorphins. There are a lot of people that said, oh, I'm going to release endorphins. I'm going for a jog. I'm going for a workout. Food. Why do you think everything we do in life revolves around having dinner or lunch? Thanksgiving, what do? We have food. Christmas, we have food. We go out on a date. Where? A restaurant. Because food releases endorphins. If you're a generous person, also success. And not making millions of dollars or winning Wimbledon. Set yourself goals that are achievable. And when you accomplish those goals on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, reinforce that feeling. I wanted to jog every morning for 20 minutes. I've done it. That will release endorphins. Sex. The second most powerful stimuli for releasing endorphins is an orgasm. But when I talk about orgasm, I'm talking also about love. When couples have money problems or any kind of problems, what is the first thing that goes out the window? Touching each other, hugging each other, having sexual relationships. Music. Music is a strong releaser of endorphins. That's why you see most athletes, when they go on the court or before a race, they are wearing their earphones. What is the first thing we do when we go to the fitness center? Where is my iPod? And you put on your headphones. But the strongest releaser of endorphins is laughter. When you laugh, it's an abundance of dopamine, good quality dopamine. That's why my system is called SMILE. If you smile, you can't be angry. I cannot tell you off with a smile on my face. So those are ways that you will also confront fear. Sports, this is very new. I'm going to touch a little bit upon this. It's been demonstrated scientifically that when you exercise, especially if you make a combination of aerobics with high intensity training, your brain releases BDNF. BDNF calms you down, it's an anti-stressor. And your brain also releases endorphins. So basically, this is a very recent study. Exercise boosts BDNF, which increases the release of serotonin, which is another endorphin. It triggers the release of gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is the basis of most antidepressants. And your heart releases ANP, another hormone that helps you calm down. If you ask me, what would be your advice for someone that is having an anxiety attack or a fear attack? Breathing. It's the most effective technique to break up an attack of fear, an attack of anxiety. And I learned that from Sting in my conversations backstage. The one thing he told me was that he does yoga combined with breathing. And if you watch tennis players, they all go, ah. The mentally tough player continues with that pattern even when he is 5-5 in the fifth set. The player that is not mentally tough starts changing and goes like, or even swallows his own breath. So you gotta keep your breathing patterns and even exaggerate them when you're under pressure. But there are different ways of breathing. How to breathe, number one. Good breathing is through your nose, not through your mouth. At the most, exhale through your mouth, but always inhale through your nose. It warms up the air. Those little hairs that you have here clean up the air, and you produce nitric oxide. Breathe from your stomach, from your diaphragm. If you breathe from your chest, that is fight and flight response. You are already under a severe attack of fear. And there are many ways of breathing. For example, Navy SEALs, when they are in a forward position or when they need to go to sleep, they use the technique called 4-7-8. Inhale for 4, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8. There are other techniques, there are other yoga techniques, but these ones have helped me tremendously. You see, that's me in the plane, climbing up to 25,000 feet, doing my breathing exercises. Rituals are very important. Rituals are healthy habits. Some people do yoga, some people do stretching. I've learned this from Sting in the backstage of his Dubai concert. He walked into the premises and he said, Pancho, can I ask you a favor? Can I get a carpet? I said, carpet? Yeah, because my changing room has a cement floor and it's very cold and very hard because I do yoga. Oh, and if you can get me some candles. So it was in Dubai, so we had this Indian guy in charge of the premises. And he said, Mr. Campo, don't you worry. I will go to His Majesty's premises and I will bring carpet for you. So he brings a Persian carpet to Sting's dressing room. So while he was sourcing the carpet and the candles, Sting said, I see that you have a lot of interest in breathing, in rituals. He said, why don't we meet tomorrow for breakfast and we can talk about this? So the next day we met for breakfast and he told me everything about his yoga routines and his breathing technique. So rituals are things that you do before anything that is important, even on a day-to-day. Having coffee in the morning. If you're going to have a coffee with milk in the morning at 7 o'clock, keep it. The more stress in the day, stick to your rituals. Healthy habits, it takes 30 to 60 days to become a habit or a ritual. During stressful times, maintain the rituals or exaggerate them. In that way, you will perform them in automatic, muscle and brain memory, and you will use less energy. Inspiration, and this is the last point before we finish. Sometimes the task is too hard, and you've done everything that is in your hand to cope with fear, to cope with stress, but you still need that extra push. I strongly recommend you to watch Invictus, played by Morgan Freeman, who plays Nelson Mandela, and Matt Damon, who plays François Pienaar, the captain of the Springboks, the rugby team of South Africa. In 1995, they hosted the World Cup. And before the beginning of the competition, they were not the favorite team. But the inspiration that Nelson Mandela gave to François Pienaar and François transmitted it to the players, it's remarkable. The movie is really inspiring. A simple Victorian poem called Invictus by William Ernest Henley. It's a beautiful poem that finishes with, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. If a poem was able to inspire Nelson Mandela to survive for 28 years of captivity, that means that sometimes you need inspiration in the work of others. You can use a movie, you can use a picture, you can use a book. Everybody has its own ways of inspiration. I strongly recommend you to look for the inspiration that is meaningful to you. But I also strongly recommend you to watch the movie because it's an unbelievable movie directed by Clint Eastwood. It's extremely inspiring. When I did my Halo jump, I watched Rocky, but the day before I watched Invictus. So, all this is in my book called Smile. It was published earlier this year by Planeta, which is the most powerful publishing house in Spanish. They have it at the reception. I'll be delighted to dedicate it to you if you want to buy it. Every single penny goes to a foundation called the Planet Future Foundation. And at the Planet Future Foundation, we do two things. We like to create awareness how important it is to protect the planet, the environment, but the planet will be inhabited by our younger generations. So we also try to raise awareness about how important it is to protect the mental status and health of our youth. There's a lot of stories and tactics in the book, a lot of tough stories, a lot of beautiful stories. But I would like to summarize my speech in don't be afraid of fear and don't be afraid of stress. Learn to manage it and it'll become your friend. I have managed to conquer fear. Tomorrow I'm jumping again. I don't know if I'm going to have fear or not. But so far I've learned to use these techniques. I'm trying to have my children and the people I coach to adopt this way of life. But if you ask me what has been the most important achievement in your life, it's not going to the Olympics, it's not meeting President Obama, it's the fact that I have managed to protect my family when I was going through bad times. When I was wanted by Interpol or when they kidnapped me in South Africa, I managed to keep them away. And having a stable family after 30 years of marriage, it's my biggest accomplishment, and this has helped a lot. Thank you very much.